Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Snap Lab. I am so happy you are joining me today for one of the most touching stories in world literature. It is called The Gift of the Magi by the master of the twist ending, O. Henry. This story takes us back to a cold, gray Christmas Eve in New York City over 100 years ago. It is a story about two people who have nothing, and yet they have everything. Most importantly for our lab today, this story is the best way to practice conditionals. We will look at how we use if to talk about our dreams, our choices, and our regrets. So take a deep breath, listen to the rhythm of the words, and let's begin. $1.87. That was all, and 60 cents of it was in pennies. Della counted it 3 times. $1.87. And the next day was Christmas. There was clearly nothing to do but sit down on the old shabby couch and cry. So Della did it. She cried until her eyes were red. Della lived with her husband, Jim, in a very small, very cheap apartment. The furniture was old, the carpet was thin. Outside, the world was gray, but inside, there was love. However, love cannot buy a Christmas present. Della wanted something fine and rare, something worthy of being owned by Jim. Now, there were 2 possessions in which Jim and Della took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch. It had been his father's and his grandfather's. If a king had lived in the same building, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time they met, just to see the king grow jealous. The other possession was Della's hair. It was brown, reaching below her knees, and it shone like a waterfall of silk. If a queen had lived in the apartment across the street, Della would have let her hair hang out the window just to make the queen's jewels look dull. Suddenly, Della stood up. She dried her tears, she put on her old brown jacket and her old brown hat. With a brilliant sparkle in her eyes, she fluttered out the door and down the streets to the street. She stopped at a shop with a sign that read, M.M.E. Sofroni, hair goods of all kinds. Della ran up the stairs. She was out of breath. "Will you buy my hair?" she asked. The shopkeeper was a cold, large woman. She looked at the hair. "I buy hair," she said. "Take your hat off and let's have a look." Down rippled the brown waterfall. The woman felt the hair with her practiced hands. $20, she said. "Give it to me quickly," said Della. For the next 2 hours, Della was tripping through the shops on rosy wings. She was searching for the perfect gift. Finally, she found it. It was a platinum watch chain, simple and elegant. It was made for Jim's watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew it must be his. It was like Jim, quiet and valuable. She paid $21 for it, and she ran home with the remaining 87 cents. If Jim had this chain, she thought, he would never be ashamed to look at his watch in public again. Currently, he used an old leather strap, and he often looked at his watch secretly because the strap was so ugly. When Della reached home, her excitement turned a little bit into fear. She looked at her head in the mirror. She looked like a boy. She took her curling iron and made small, tight curls all over her head. "If Jim doesn't kill me," she whispered to herself, "he'll say I look like a chorus girl. But what could I do? Oh, what could I do with $1.87? At 7 o'clock, the coffee was made and the frying pan was hot. Jim was never late. Della sat on the corner of the table near the door. She heard his step on the stairs. She turned white for just a moment. She prayed, "Please, God, make him think I am still pretty." The door opened. Jim stepped in. He looked thin and very serious. Poor fellow, he was only 22 and he had a lot of responsibility. He needed a new coat and he had no gloves. Jim stopped inside the door. His eyes were fixed upon Della. There was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor horror. He simply stared at her. Della jumped off the table. "Jim, darling," she cried, "don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut and sold it because I couldn't have lived through Christmas without giving you a present. If I hadn't sold it, I wouldn't have had the money. It'll grow out again. You won't mind, will you? Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy." "You've cut off your hair?" asked Jim, speaking as if he could not believe his own ears. "Cut it off and sold it," said Della. "Don't you like me just as well? I'm me without my hair, aren't I?" Jim looked about the room curiously. Then he took a package from his coat pocket and threw it upon the table. "Don't make any mistake about me, Dell," he said. "I don't think any haircut could make me love you less, but if you unwrap that package, you may see why I was so shocked." White fingers tore at the string and paper, and then a scream of joy, and then, alas, a quick change to tears. For there lay the combs, the set of combs, side and back, that Della had worshipped for months in a Broadway window. They were beautiful combs, pure tortoiseshell, with jeweled rims, just the shade to wear in her beautiful hair. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers, but the hair that should have worn them was gone. But she hugged them to her chest, and at length she was able to look up with dim eyes and a smile and say, "My hair grows so fast, Jim." And then Della leapt up like a little singed cat and cried, "Oh, oh!" Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him on her open palm. The precious metal seemed to flash with her bright spirit. "Isn't it a dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 10 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it." Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch and put his hands under the back of his head and smiled. "Dell," he said, "let's put our Christmas presents away and keep 'em a while. They're too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs. And now, suppose you put the chops on." The Magi, as you know, were wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Della and Jim were perhaps not wise in the way of money, but they were the wisest of all who give and receive gifts. Before you go, let's look at what we actually practiced in this long session. The second conditional, imaginary present. We used sentences like, "If a king lived here, Jim would be jealous." We use this to imagine a different reality right now. The third conditional, past regrets, we analyzed the sentence, "If I hadn't sold my hair, I wouldn't have had the money." This is essential for talking about things that already happened in the past. Vocabulary of sacrifice. You learned words like shabby, old and poor, possessions, things you own, craved, wanted very badly, and eloquent, expressive. Story structure. We practiced the O. Henry twist, which helps you anticipate outcomes in English. Thank you for being part of English Snap Lab today. This was a long journey, but your English is stronger for it. Tell me in the comments if you had to sacrifice your most precious thing for someone you love, what would it be? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.